Hey guys, Joel here. I'm coming to you from my van, and I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about something that I think is one of the most important things that we can do with our time, and that is actually go to church. And I know uh, your parents or your grandparents have probably told you to go to church a time or two in your life, uh, and I'm here to just confirm that it is extremely valuable. Churches do some things absolutely fantastic. They're great for community support. They're great for combating loneliness. Honestly, they're the best place that you can raise your kids and your family. Church is so diverse, and there's so many different experiences of church. Now, that comes with quite a few thoughts and quite a few things to mention around that. But I think in the diversity of a church experience, you can really you can find a community that is almost custom made for you and for the people that you love. Church requires a bit of an open-minded approach, but ultimately I think it is such a great investment of your time. And that's where I want to start is your time. We are so rushed on every single thing that we do. And there's something behind the intentionality of going to church that actually creates time in your life. And I know if you just look at the math and you have so many hours in the week, but you decide to take 4 of them and put them somewhere where they weren't going before, you feel like you have lost 4 hours. But the habit building and just the intentionality of getting up and going to church, whether on a Sunday morning or whenever, actually it does this weird thing in your brain where it shifts your perspective and can actually feel like it gives you more time. Now, time is one of those things that we waste a lot of, but it's also one of those things we don't want to give away. And I would suggest that if you're feeling convicted about going to church, but you are negotiating with yourself about you don't want to lose the time or you don't want to commit that amount of time, just open your settings app and go to your screen time and just see if that's a good trade. If the amount of hours you put onto Instagram or the amount of hours that you put onto Facebook Marketplace looking for deals, maybe that time, just for that one day of Sunday, could be put towards something that holds incredible social, emotional, and spiritual value for you. That I would recommend you don't give that up for anything. That you would trade all the time in the world to gain the value that church can bring. Church is so good at being a support. When you find yourself amongst a group of people who believe the same essential things that you do, and even if actually, I'm going to say, even if you don't believe those essential things, with an open mind, you can go to church and find community support that you will be hard pressed to find anywhere else. Working in the nonprofit world, which is where some people find their community support, whether through volunteering or through food banks or community meals. Like there is a lot of wonderful community support. But from my experience, it really can pale to the community support you can receive from a church. Uh, as some of you may know, like recently we have moved across the country, me and my family, and that creates quite a bit of turmoil if you do it the best way. And we didn't do it the best way. We were a little bit rushed, and with job changes and house changes, everything became a little bit rushed. And so we found ourselves facing some, just facing a need to be in community with other people who are like us. And this past Sunday, sort of randomly, because we had someone invite us over for lunch, and I've got a big family, 4 kids, and so to invite 6 people over for lunch is quite the sacrifice. And we had some friends sort of reach out. I guess they had other people who dropped out at the last minute, and they still were preparing food for enough people, so they invited us to sort of fill the spot. And when you get the chance to not even get the churchy things, like we didn't pray with each other. There was no healing. There was no singing songs together. It was just eating food together. But just to know that there's someone else who likes me and is like me and is going through the same experiences in life, the companionship that can be built from that is so essential for human living. And we as a society have such a huge deficit on these essential things that church used to provide that we don't engage with anymore. Community support is so important. Sort of the secondary part of that is combating loneliness. I have been incredibly lonely at times that I've gone to church and been incredibly lonely at times I have not gone to church. But the difference is at church, I have a community that by default wants to love me, by default wants to engage with me, and by default wants to defeat that loneliness. And when we separate ourselves from a community like that, you have to face the loneliness battle on your own. And we're losing. When you fight the loneliness battle on your own, as a society, we're losing that. And I know churches come with all of their stuff and a wide range of experiences, good to bad. But when you can find a church where somebody by default wants to do life with you, wants to heap love onto you, wants to help carry you through those hard times, it is incredibly valuable. The next thing I want to talk about is raising kids. It's extremely popular these days to say it takes a village to raise a child. And I always struggle with that because, well, God didn't necessarily create villages. He created the family unit, mother and father and children. But I would say it takes a church community to raise a child well. I've worked for the last few years in sort of the youth space as in a nonprofit. And I can tell you just in a lot of ways, it's not working. These trade-offs we've made to stay away from church and do life on our own, do life outside of community is in a lot of ways not working. Young people, your children, my kids are built to do life with a broad range, age range of people, a wide ethnic diversity of people. Your children are meant to engage in. They need more than just a parent on the other side of a phone or a father figure sitting on the couch watching football. They need a family, and they need their family to be engaged in the local church because it helps kids to understand social dynamics. It helps kids to understand social graces, which are different than social dynamics. Social dynamics are what should I do when. Social graces are understanding that other people do not necessarily have the same capacity that they do, and that person should be loved. That person should be welcome, and that person should be made a priority. And when your kids are not necessarily around a wide range of ages and abilities and people, they miss out on some of those things. Now all this comes with some caveats. I understand that church can suck. I understand that it can be really, really hard to look somebody in the face on Sunday as they're smiling and saying how much they love God when they have hurt you on Saturday, when they have been harsh to you on Friday. And I think what I have to say to that is get over it. What we experience is what we have in the human experience is hypocrisy. I heard someone say, the sign of a hypocrite is the sign of somebody who's just learning to do better. Now, I've always understood hypocrisy as if I say one thing at point A in time, and then I do the opposite at point B in time, then I'm a hypocrite because I have said it should happen this way, and then I have gone and done it the opposite way. And I admit to that. Like I think that's true, and I think that we do that. All of us, we have ideals that we do not live up to. We set New Year's resolutions that fall through. We promise to love our spouse in the way that they need, and then we forget about it. Um, Humans hurt each other. It's truthfully what happens. The only way that we can avoid that is by living. I wouldn't even say you can avoid it, because as we live increasingly digital and lonely lives, we're still hurt by people. It just happens through a screen instead of in person. Now, through a screen, I can turn it off and I can ignore a problem. In person, I'm left to face it. But you become a better person as you face those troubles. If you're being abused, if someone's hurting you, if you're being actively uh, socially bullied or taken down, churches should not abide that. And um, obviously, get the authorities involved as soon as possible for the worst of the worst situations. But for 99% of the issues that we have with other people, it's better if we attempt to resolve them than to break away from community. Um, Finally, keep an open mind. When you're going to church, you will not agree with everything. Even if you are not a Christian, I encourage you to go to church, because I believe, not only do I believe that Christianity is true, but I believe that in community with other Christians, you will become a better person emotionally, uh, socially, and spiritually. And hopefully, if you're in a if you're in a healthy body of believers physically, you become a better person. Um, but there's some churches that just will not be the right fit. I've been a Christian, really trying to follow the Lord for half my life, about 15 years, and I know that if I walked into some churches, I would have a really hard time. And I know that some churches I would probably be asked to leave or to change the way that I look. And although I am now at a point where I can't necessarily discredit the faith of these churches or the faith of the Christians of these churches, I understand that it will take time. Like if you are distant from church or thinking about going back to church, or you're having kids and are beginning to recognize that there's a gap in what you can provide and what maybe churches should provide, you can go and just check churches out. There's such a broad range of church expression, especially in North America, but across the world there is so many denominations and so many different churches, and I think there's actually strength in diversity. And I think the things that churches disagree on are far less important than the things that almost all churches agree on. And that is that God loves you and he wants you to be a part of that family. He wants you to belong, not only emotionally, not only socially, but spiritually. God wants you to belong to his family. It's the family of believers present in the local church, but also to the family of believers globally and that have existed since the time of Jesus' death and resurrection. And I want to encourage you that the things that our society has lost in this last generation, you can gain back by becoming part of a church family. That has been proven time and time again in my own life, even through some very devastating church hurts, as they are called, even through some very devastating hypocrisy, and even through the hurts that I have caused other people. The value that you get from a church community is is far greater than what you lose, or what you lose by not being part of church is far greater than what you're getting by staying home or by being on your phone. I really, church community is worth so much. and it sucks, and it's beautiful, and it's terrible, and it's hurtful, and it's beautiful, and it's good for me, it's good for you, it's good for our kids, it's good for our marriages, and it's humbling to know that, yeah, church hurts, being hurt by people who go to church, whether socially or emotionally or even physically. That can be so devastating because it's people who have promised to do better and people who have put their lives in the hands of God and then have treated you like the devil. And that is terrible. And what I would say is understand that that is was not God's intention for your life to be hurt. And B, I think acknowledging that we have our own capacity to do hurt and to do that to other people. And in this human experience, we will be hurtful to each other. But to work it out with people face to face is so enriching, so valuable to our character, so valuable to our emotional lives. Cannot recommend it enough. So this Sunday, find a church and try it out. You do not have to make any major commitments. You don't even have to change the way you believe, but you should go and keep an open mind. Thanks.